ready. I'm yawning, my eyes are falling in the back of my head.
Hey, how are you? Good. First couple of days
Almost
back.
two. I sound like an old drunk. Son Wildlife.
Oh, okay. That makes my heart happy.
Back to school in North Carolina. I'm in the schoolman. Captains of the tennis team. Going off to
good reason.
North Carolina. And then going out to the interstate. Passenger van train from Blue College. Flips up into the air, bounces off the guardrail, doesn't want it, you know, and they're doing all they can to being in it. They stop while calls 911, grabs the first aid kit. His other roommate starts dealing with people. They're trying to patch people and stop bleeding, and the first person to stop was a trauma patient. So she's like, I got this, you guys assist. So I guess 3 of them went to the hospital and 1 got me more. That's what you get when you leave work. You get into the real world.
How's it going? Good.
What do we have friends? Mostly just deal.
She was? Not for anything bad. Just like, oh, I use your credit cards after my
But it definitely like
I'm good. Yeah. Like a little
I have to look over to my right when she's sitting on the table right beside me. I didn't panic, I didn't say a word. I just sat there and waited until it finally went away. If I jumped up and probably from where I'm sitting over by that where the TV is, there's bears rummaging through the dumpsters. They didn't count them.
it's 5:02 and I think we have enough people, so we should get started. I'll call the meeting order at 5:03. The confirmation of board member attendance and voting sheet is going around. So we have enough people from every town, right? I think we have a quorum. Right. So, okay. Is there any public comment? Is there none came on email? Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion for approval of minutes from 10 June 2024?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay. That will bring us to reports and updates.
Well, welcome everyone to the 24-25 school year. To start off, it's been a really wonderful start in all of our schools. I had an opportunity to sort of pop into many of them on the first or second day, other than 2 of the outer islands, but I hope to be out at Swans this month and Frenchboro as well. But being in the classrooms and watching the procedures and kids getting to learn them and seeing all the smiling faces, it's just been, a great start. And the weather has been awesome as well, so exciting. Hope we get sports up and running. So I'd like to start off, as always, with our district service promise, which is interrupting educational inequities and creating schools where every child and staff member thrives one conversation at a time. And look at our September enrollment. District-wide, our total numbers are at 1,380. In June, we ended with 1,417. So that's a loss of 37 students overall. When you look across the span, there's sort of been a mix. Some of that was larger classes leaving and classes of fewer students coming in. We actually have more students at Mount Desert and at Southwest Harbor, and at Swans Island than we did at the end of June. But our other schools have also lost. So, as I think I say every time, these numbers sort of fluctuate, but this is sort of, this is where we find ourselves in September. Staffing updates, and I think has been my sense all along is that we have probably in a better shape than we have been all in the last couple of years in terms of staffing. I think there are still, as you can see, positions available. Elementary science at one of our schools, long-term sub. Speech and language, though I think we were in a better place than we were last year, but we still have a school that's utilizing Huddle Up, which is the company that used to be .com Therapy, behavior interventionist, some special education positions that are open, EdTech 3s across all of our schools. Some of our schools are fully staffed there, and some are still looking for positions. Bus drivers, coaches, always looking for folks who are interested in substitute teaching. Some custodian positions at the high school. And at the AOS level, we have our administrative position at the AOS that's open, and in the business office payroll, we had a resignation in our payroll department in the business this summer, and so we actually have interviews this Thursday for that position. And you can click on the link, so I think this is already on the agenda, so of course folks can go and take a look at any of the opportunities throughout the schools and take a look at those. I do want to announce that we have hired an operations coordinator, and that is Scott Watson from the high school as the new coordinator. There was a committee with Heather Dorr, the principal of Mount Desert, and the head of maintenance and the bus driver, my brain just stopped, Leon Sargent, thank you. And we had Mimi Rainford from Swans and Marie Yarborough as a board representative. We had 5 candidates that we interviewed, and Scott was clearly the top candidate. And I had been thinking all along, as you read in my piece, that he will be doing both the operations for the district overall and some of the high school work, but we are changing some of the work at the high school in terms of bringing on, we had an open position for a custodian and a custodian supervisor for the morning to help deal with all of the sort of day-to-days to allow Scott to work with all of our principals. And we've had, through last year and through this summer, Warren Young, who I mentioned a couple of times in some of our meetings. He was a sub-bus driver, but he also took the training to become a instructional bus driver, instructional teacher for bus driving, and actually has trained a series of bus drivers who Mount Desert hired a bus driver that they were looking for. They still need one other, but he came through that program, and then we had several people who are working in the district to be sub-drivers, who are coaches, speech and language pathologists, and at Pematic has actually signed up to get her driver's and passed with the assistance of Warren. And he has been doing that job through the summer. And with the rearranging of those positions, we are able to support those. And then as we build the budget for next year, I'll be making some proposals in terms of what the ALS staffing looks like overall. But I'm very excited in this hire, and I think that he will do a wonderful job in supporting our principals. And I've already sort of met with him to talk about what the things that are going on in all of our schools. But there's the connections that he has to contractors within the district, and his own experience of 30 years of working in the business, I think will be a boon for us in supporting our schools and helping us prioritize our needs and get the work done. And so I'm excited about that. Oh, yes.
So Warren is going to be doing transportation coordination for the whole district?
Yes. Yep.
So did the transportation director job description then, I mean, it must have changed if it doesn't include that.
The operations position that it still has the oversight over the coordination of transportation, but it's not the sole job. I think our experience was that those two, having those melded as one position, you were focusing, you were losing on either side. And Warren had been sort of working and doing a lot of the work of coordinating in terms of, he has that the system that we use down pat. He was training bus drivers, has the respect of our bus drivers, and has done a wonderful job of getting an understanding of what the needs are system-wide. And having him as a driver, really helps in that support.
Two follow-up questions. So the other, I remember there feeling like there were some issues with the operations description not giving enough kind of written managerial duties that was complicating various tasks. Has that been bolstered? And then the transportation thing, are we still using the software and Warren has actually figured that out?
Yes, we are using the software and he has figured it out. And I think that part of the issue with this, I think one of the things when it comes to software, whether it's software for transportation or if it's software for education, the software isn't the only driver that provides you the information that you need for either efficiencies or knowledge. Is that then there are whether it's educational software, it's the teachers on the ground who provide you the insight of how best to use that to then work through lessons. And I think in terms of operations of transportation, the computer can tell you based on a map what's the most efficient route to get somewhere. However, you need your drivers to be able to take a look at those routes and be like, okay, I see what that was trying to do, but that's not going to work because of X. And I think that in the work that Warren has been doing, he's been able to make that connection and a recognition that you need to have the understanding of the people on the ground to utilize the software to maximize its efficiency. Because I think it's really useful. It's a really useful tool to help look at those efficiencies sort of, as we go down the road, as we think of ourselves as we move more towards that, hopefully, RSE model.
I have one question. So I think we experienced that we waited a long time for results in the prior incarnation of this position, and that was frustrating. So I wonder, do you feel like in this new restructured thing with new people that there's a clear process for evaluating how well it's working and being able to do something different if it's not working, I guess?
Yeah, and I think I would like to come back mid, whether it's December, January time to sort of like a check-in, and part of that will be speaking with principals about whether or not they're feeling that they're able to focus more on the instructional side, which was the whole idea around the operations position, and allow someone at the AOS level and their heads of maintenance to deal with those issues rather than the principal always having to be involved. And so I would think somewhere around December or January to have some information gathered from those individuals to sort of help with that discussion of how things are going. And now for school highlights from the first couple of weeks of school. At Mount Desert High School, the freshmen went to Camp Kiev, which is a leadership camp down in Noblesboro, Maine. It's a camp that I went to as a teacher, working with 7th graders at a previous school on the Blue Hill Peninsula and with Connors Emerson. So that was an overnight that the freshmen did down there. They went with the whole freshman team as well. I'm sure I don't want to take anything away from the high school, but it was a highlight, a really important one. The fall sports are in full swing. One of the neat things this year in the Chalk Talk is Principal Haney is putting out a weekly message, and you can go see him do his little video message. Our fall musical this year will be Chicago, and I think this past week they were doing some of the work to get kids to sign up. and on that. And we have our Pride Crosswalk, which will be in the back. Painting for that will be happening in the next week. And then the parent nights for seniors and freshmen are up there. And so that's exciting. And I think I have the date for the senior night.
Oh, it was last night.
Yeah, last night? Okay. I thought that, wait a minute, that's Sunday.
It is Sunday.
All right, great. At the Ashley Bryan School, we have a new teacher out there, Ashley Greenleaf, and I was out last Friday, and I was joined by Willow the goat, who lives on Great Cranberry, and the meeting for the school board was on Islesford, and so Willow came on down and got on the boat like she does it every single day, and stood there looking out on the ocean as we went over, and she was there for a specific job. And the students on Great Cranberry are looking at, on Cranberry on Islesford are building a mud kitchen for the littlest kids, and they needed a space, and the space that was designated for that needed to be cleared from brambles, and so Willow was the one who was doing the clearing, so it was a carbon neutral situation. And in the short time that I was there, Willow did a great job. And I got to see the plans that a student designed for that, and so it's pretty cool in terms of really connected curriculum to some of the work that's going on in some of our smaller schools. And they're headed off to the fall TLC on Cliff Island, and their open house is October 1st. Frenchboro as well is headed to the fall TLC on Cliff Island. And most recently, the students have been off island and visited Fort Knox with their teacher, and then went up to Penobscot Narrows Observatory, and then they did some bonding. There's two on Frenchboro. They're brothers, so they're bonded pretty well. But they had an opportunity to sort of take some risks, and they went to the climbing facility over in Trenton. I think that was last week.
What is a fall TLC?
It is a collection of island schools and their teachers and students, and they come together both in the fall and the spring. Frenchboro actually hosted the fall TLC last year, where families and students come together and just have get together and share the unique experiences of being an island school. And both Cranberry and Frenchboro are part of that organization. And mostly the sort of the smaller schools, Chebeague and others, Cliff Island, that have them. And so with work through the Island Institute in supporting that. So it's pretty neat. At Connors Emerson, the new school groundwork will begin once we receive the DEP permitting is all done. I know it was in the paper, but or at least on the Bar Harbor Story, that a local, Stephen Costin, has donated $100,000 to the project, and super appreciative of the fact of someone who's come through our system and understands the importance of education, has stepped forward and donated to the cause of the school. So that was very exciting to hear about that. Thank you, Lily, for all the work that you have done in making that happen, and a big thank you to Stephen. At the Trenton School, they are doing a little fundraising, and at the beginning of school, they had the Darlings ice cream truck at school, and they raised $500. They need a swing set upgrade, and so they'll continue some fundraising on that. Their after-school program will be starting hopefully on the 24th, and that runs Tuesday through Thursday, 3 to 4:30, and their open house is the 26th. At Pematic, Christine and the 7th and 8th graders went rafting at the beginning of the year. The library has put together a new grab-and-go book selection, so some of the new or interesting books. They're highlighting a section for kids to come and look really quickly at some exciting books and be able to get those and take those home. They had their school-wide buddy walk that happens every year at the beginning, where they match youngers and littles and do a walk over on the other side by Long Pond.
They go from Echo Lake
Echo
Beach
Lake,
up to the
yep,
campground,
to the campground.
through the woods.
And they have their K-3 early bird program starting up 7:30 to 8 for a limited number of kindergartners through 3rd grade, where they get to do either homework, work on things that they're struggling with, or play games or read. In French class, when I was there visiting, I was able to see the classroom has a bunch of new art in it. That's from French Impressionists that were put around the classroom. It's actually pretty cool when you sit in there. You kind of feel like you're in a museum and just want to speak French. And our open house occurred on the 5th of last week. Swans Island School, we're restarting our 4th grade event, but unfortunately weather got in the way last year, so they're making that up as the 5th grade event. And that will be coming up in October, and then we've already scheduled the 4th grade event for May of 2025. Kids will be going to Sea Camp the 18th through the 20th. And they're going to be having a community discussion about playground, garden, and recreational ideas for the space they have outside. And their open house, which is going to be something new this year, kind of be a game night open house, is in October on the 9th. At Mount Desert Elementary, they've done some interesting work in looking at their 1st, 2nd grade, and 3rd and 4th grade, and creating cohorts within those grades and doing some mixed age grouping based on some of the needs that they identified. Teachers and staff worked really hard on those classrooms and are hoping to really meet the needs of those kids at those grade levels. So it'll be exciting to sort of see that take place. Oftentimes in our smaller schools, based on needs, we've done some of that mixing of grades to sort of meet the needs. So it'll be neat to watch that through this year. They had a school tour for new families, and open house for pre-K was held August 22nd. The music program that was reported at the first board meeting, it seems like we are seeing some pre-pandemic numbers in terms of the interest in music and kids' abilities at that advanced level in music programs. So Principal Heather Moore highlighted that at our last meeting, and their open house is the 17th. And then at Tremont, Camp Kia came to the school to work with 5th graders, and the 7th graders are going down. Actually left for Noblesboro today. They had their first community meeting where they talked about their school goals, and that's sort of a school-wide, almost like the morning meeting in our elementary schools, but a school-wide meeting. 1st and 2nd graders traveled to the Charlotte Rhodes Butterfly Garden and did some work on life cycles of butterflies. And 6th graders were already learning how to use the pottery wheel, so that's pretty cool. And their open house is the 26th. And so those are, as you can see, kids and teachers are already providing sort of a range of experiences for our students, and really focusing a lot on that community building piece as described through some of the work we're doing with the responsive classroom. In my report, I just left the budgets for this coming year there. Once Nancy and I speak with all of the municipal officers, then probably in October, I'll have the sort of breakdown of the dates for each of our schools and what that looks like. But we need to go back and be reminded of sort of where we are. All that is still there for our schools. Staff spotlight. Lynn Hanna, who is the Connors Emerson science teacher, is presenting at a national science conference in New Orleans this school year. Kristen Vaughn, who is an elementary teacher at Mount Desert, was accepted this year into the special education PhD program at UMO. And then I wanted to highlight, I know a lot of work goes into the opening days for new staff that are here, and then the new teacher orientation that happens. And so I wanted to highlight, I went and sort of scoured through our agendas of all the folks that did some presentations, sort of homegrown presentations that occurred within our schools, and sort of give a shout out to those individuals. And before that, I read off those names, so I thought that was really important. Our administrators, both at the school and district level, presented at our opening days in aspects of responsive classroom strategies for the classroom. And so I had a session, and Julia had a session, and Rhonda, and others from our office, and all the principals. And I think it was really exciting for our teachers and staff to sort of see principals and admin helping support them in our responsive classroom work. And so the teachers that sort of helped in some of that work were Patty Galliez, Lynn Hanna, Chrissy Parkinson, Mark Arnold, Linda Dunn, Nikki Dawes, Ann Rohde, Laura Savage, Andrew Carlson, Edie Dubois, Stephanie Logue, Carolyn Todd, Stacy Wood, Erica Witham, Basil Steele, Chris Doherty, Miranda Snyder, Kate Muzzy, Becky Lehman, Linda Fuller from COA did a session on a class on kind of like the joy of teaching in the final semester at COA. That had, and she had came here and spoke to teachers. I went and spoke. Cindy Lambert, Ashley Stanley, Kelly Boulier, and Elaine Eaton. I probably should have said, if that's a teacher in your school, give a shout out. But there was folks from across the district, the high school, and our elementary schools. So it was a really good show of the abilities that our staff had to be able to share their knowledge and expertise with their fellow teachers. In the updates, you can go and take a look at the opening day schedule and sort of see the different things that principals and teachers from across the district did. I wanted to share that we received a Teach with Tech grant and gathered 3D printers, laser engravers, robotic kits for all of our schools. It was a $90,000 grant. Where does Lou go? Thank you, Lou. And then I shout out to Bob Weber, longtime trustee. He is resigning after 33 years of service, supporting MDI High School in the role of the trustee. So I wanted to be able to thank him publicly of all the work that he has done in making sure that this building has withstood the test of time over the years. And then I also wanted to share that we hired a new SRO for Connors Emerson, Mount Desert High School and Mount Desert Elementary School, Elias Byrne, who is MDI high school graduate, and I linked a little interview from Chris Popper, and thank Heather Dorr for finding that and linking that to her principal's report. And so folks know, and I think in the note that I went out, through the summer we met the team of administrators from those schools, and myself met with Chief Kearns to review our policies and expectations, and both on the side of the role of the SRO in our schools, and then we were part of the process of hiring that individual. And we have our MOUs coming up for each of those schools in October. And I'll be sure to make sure that that goes out ahead of time so people can review not only the policies, so you can see those, but also the MOU that we've used for the last couple of years. MDI RSS reorganization, again, I want to share that we've been meeting monthly, and the Wednesday's RPC meeting will be on the disposition of property and school debt. And that's sort of one of the pieces that you have to answer on your checklist around reorganization. I'll sort of share something in a minute where you can actually see a little bit more about that. But I want to remind everyone that our reorganization effort is to help reorganize our current structure from a collection of individual schools into a coherent and more equitable model to better serve our students and educators. And so the work that the RPC has been doing has been holding that as sort of our North Star in terms of focusing on students. And I want to be able to share the new AOS reorganization website, which you would find off of the MDI RSS site. It's right on the right side. You can always click here. And one of the pieces that's a little bit more different, that's different than on the old website, it was sort of a bit hard to find the information that was there. So Cindy Lambert worked through the summer to create the site, to identify some specific information that it was important to share with the community. So down below, there's the Why document, the presentations that the board had seen with me through the reorganization committee at the board level that was working. So the models that we put out there and the workshop slideshow about the process of what you have to go through if you're planning on reorganizing. And then slideshows that I created for the RPC around the history of reorganization within the district, starting from the high school. Then when we started talking about governance, what are the models that we could look at? And so you can see that. The current funding mechanisms, as we were talking about, what a funding model might look like. And any information that has been in the news is collected there. And then there's also a place for folks to click if they have comments regarding reorganization, and those come to me. And then each of these buttons will share who the group members are, the dates of meetings. We're working on summaries of those meetings, so folks can see those, what the working agreements are for the group. We have a sample of an at-large voting model, which is a model we're looking at as part of our proposal. And so we're hoping that this provides more information for people in the community, but also for board members to sort of be abreast of the work that we're doing. And then finally, School Board Corner. The Maine School Board Association has a new updated handbook. And so if you go to that link, you can see the online version. And they've updated it to match the current changes in law. And so you can go there, and then I will send out, I forgot to put on the link here, the updated Mount Desert Island board handbook that has some information about things that are a little bit more specific to us. So that'll be linked there as well. And then I thought I'd just sort of share our school committee norms since we are starting, this year. And so, the norms for our school committees are that we respect all views and treat all with equal weight, that we seek to understand other views in addition to working to make others understand our opinion. We look for common ground when considering dissimilar views. Put a stake in the ground, but be willing to use it. Listen without interrupting. Be hard on issues and soft on people. Be civil, especially when differences arise. And if you have issues with a person, talk directly with that person and no surprises. And that's my report.
What do you mean, what's no surprises, and how should we interpret that?
We should interpret that as, if there's information that needs to be shared, that I would do my best to make sure you all know about it. And if there's things that I should know from you all, I hear it before a meeting.
I believe that one originally came out of the context of contract negotiations, and the idea was like, if we've all met and we've said, we agree on whatever, that then we don't come to the next meeting and some of us say, well, actually, I decided, of course you can change your mind, but that that we're all trying to operate with some transparency with our process. I think that's where it came from.
It's also, if you look actually in the Maine Association, school boards, they actually have that as when you look at their common norms for school boards, it's in there as well.
I apologize, it was late, but I just don't know if you went around the room and introduced everybody. We do have a new member to the school board. So I would like to welcome Catherine Emery from MDIRSS. There may be other faces I don't recognize, but she's the one that is sitting here.
Thank you so much.
She might want to know our names too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we can
You can just stickler for this,
I apologize, I would have gone, for some reason I thought this was your second meeting, I did not realize it was for the meeting, I apologize.
Well, it is her official second meeting. She was at the Mount Desert board meeting last week, so. But maybe we could start with
Are you skipping
start
Julie?
with
Julie
She
Walensky,
chopped liver. Marie Yarborough, hello again, welcome.
Jessica Tremont.
Jesse Stewart and Tremont and AOS chair.
Oh, Isaac from Southwest Iowa.
What's left is the Tremont. This from Bar Harbor. Misha Micah from Bar Harbor.
John Bench from Southwest Iowa.
Clifford Noyes, Southwest Harbor.
Carrie Hayes, Tremont. Selena Dunbar, Superintendent's Office.
Rhonda Fortin, Director of Teaching and Learning for Pre-K through 6.
There's one more behind.
Tyson.
It's overwhelming to join a school board, and I feel like it's not very okay to not welcome. So thank you for stepping up.
Yes. You're gonna be seeing a lot of us.
I was just wondering if we had any update on how summer school went at all, or if we will have an update.
I'll let directors of teaching and learning.
It went very well.
Is it still at Trenton? Like, can you give us a full update on it?
It was still at Trenton. I mean, we can come back and do something more detailed, but it was still at Trenton. This was the 3rd year that we've done it. It included the 5 K-8 elementary schools. Don't believe this year there was anybody from the Outer Islands. It's just the way that there was a couple of kids from Swans. And there were between 120 and 130 kids that were involved. Again, I'm going to get the exact number for you. But, and things went really well. A lot of teaching and learning happening, and we still had the outdoor school come on Fridays. So instead of kids going out for field trips, Acadia National Park came and did some things with the kids, outdoor classroom, things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we turn it over to Julie Rhonda?
Yes, it's all yours.
Oh, I
Come on.
didn't see it. Okay, thanks. You want me to go first?
I can go first. And you're getting.
We didn't organize who went first.
Yeah,
So.
we didn't. We organized who was going to talk about what, but not who was going first.
Well, I'll go first because I have my slide up.
All right,
Okay.
go for it.
Let me see that. This is my test on whether or not I like this new font and slide show here. But last year we talked quite a bit about the vision of the graduate, particularly as it related to the work of the high school in the NIASC process. And we talked a little bit about this in the spring, that one of the things that we came to understand pretty clearly, having gone through this process, is this is not just a high school process, it's a community process. So it is our plan this year to hold and host community conversations in all of our schools and talk about, in light of our changing world, what the needs are of the future MDIHS graduate. And in terms of vision of a graduate, there's a few different definitions rolling around, but this is the one we're landing on right now. It's from the Great Schools Partnership. It's a little adapted. But we define it basically as a vision of a graduate is a vision that articulates the collective hopes and dreams that a community has for its students, as well as the skills and attributes that all students need in order to be prepared for life, work, and post-secondary education. The process meaningfully engages a diverse team that represents all community partners, ensuring an equitable and representative process that unites the community. So this is a big lift, and we are in the early stages. As you can see here, I've just got my slideshow starting in a sketch form here, but we'll be organizing dates and scheduling them in schools. We're going to take our time. We're going to do it slowly so that we can collect input, synthesize the data, and make sure we've not rushed through that process. We're partnering with the College of the Atlantic. We've got some college students who are interested in policy, and they're going to be helping us in the facilitation of these community discussions. And there'll be more information forthcoming once we schedule times and dates. But we expect these sessions to be an hour to an hour and a half long, with open community forums, with guided facilitation, with some prompts about what our students are going to be facing pretty soon. That's already here. And so we'll do a little bit of education, but it's going to be a lot more listening to our communities, because we're looking at schools looking different, right? And we're not sure, we're not making that decision without the input of our community. So that's going to be the grounding force of all of it. Any thoughts or questions about Vision of a Graduate? Yeah.
What are your hopes and dreams for who comes to these community sessions? Like, are you like, I really hope that,
I hope
like,
you come.
of course.
And listen, I mean, this is really where we're going to have to work hard to get the word out, because we do want folks who are not engaged in the process to show up, right? Because we want all of our voices heard, and not just the school board members who signed up and do this kind of service. So getting folks who don't normally participate in such activities is definitely a priority, because they're part of our community, and we want this to be representative of our whole community.
I mean, are you considering like reaching out specifically, like it would be great if somebody from the Jackson Lab that's involved in education?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In addition to just
that's
regular,
that's part of the community partners. We're all invested
okay.
in our graduates. So yes, that's not just parents, but this will be advertised broadly to the community. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is a vision of a graduate a phrase that is used in other places? I worked on a project once. It was a portrait of a graduate
is also common. I mean, I think NEASC uses portrait of a graduate. No, they use vision of a graduate. Portrait of a graduate is being, different consultants use different language, but it really is the same thing. And actually this, Rhonda attended a conference not long ago put on by the state. The state is hiring and contracting with other consultants to go around the state and have these similar community forums, but it's portrait of a school. So the state is also making this effort, and we're kind of paralleling it, if you will. But we all know that schools are not designed for what we're experiencing right now, and we have to make change, but not without having these really deep conversations first. And then that will help us in our decision making and moving forward. So it's kind of interesting. My next blurb is going to be all the learning we're doing, right? And all the initiatives we're having, and it's without this really serious conversation about what are we working towards. So we're doing it simultaneously.
What kind of experiences are you talking about that our schools aren't designed for?
Well, I'm taking a little peek here. Hold on. So, I mean, technology, of course, is going to be one of the #1 influences, but also in light of what technology can do, what are the skills we need in order to work with it in a different way? I mean, our lives have changed since COVID, right? Remote learning, remote working is now a career pathway. What are the skills you need to do that, and so forth? Collaborative. Technology is not everything. You have to now be deeply collaborative, right? So deep communication skills, working with others, things of that nature. But I'm not fully prepared for that part. I'm preparing for that part. And that's sort of part of the work of getting this ready, is we want to do a little bit of education about these types of things that are presenting themselves. And then, what are the skills our kids need to meet these, to meet this changing world.
Sure.
Yeah. You're welcome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to that point, I'm not sure if this is new or old or like, data and STEM and technology and whatever. That's a key thing we talk about a lot now. But also, like, education isn't just workforce development, so it obviously, but so it's like how to practice freedom and democracy, how to be a responsible, engaged citizen, how to know how to talk to people and solve problems as
collective because, you know, those skills that we need to have a functioning democratic society.
Absolutely. And I'll dovetail, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna ask, like, is there, I'm sorry if I missed this too, but is there a history of us having other versions of our vision? Like that?
I would call them mission statements.
Right.
More and more like that, vision statements, but not really rethinking and reimagining school. So this is a little different. And it's really asking our community to take pause of what we're all experiencing here and then having input into how we can support our students to being their best selves. And you're right, it's not just all about technology, and it's really the whole child, right? Mind, body, heart, spirit. And that's, you know, given all these components, how are we supporting our students?
So you have the anxious generation in your staff.
I do, I'm all over the place here today, but yes.
Is this something that lots of schools all over America were talking about, or?
Yes. I would say that, I mean, look, the portrait of a graduate concept, I mean, there are some people who do it to comply, right? Well, this is a NIASC requirement. It's really best practice, and it's what we kind of halted a lot of our decision making to say we wanted to do a good job with this before we started talking about programming, because why develop programs just because you think they're cool if they're not speaking to our community's needs and values, right? Hopes and dreams and aspirations. So we're putting more value into it maybe than others, but certainly there are districts and models that we've looked at that have really blown us away in terms of the level of thoughtfulness and how it represents their community, and that's what we're hoping to replicate.
And does this fit into like what comes from the top down? You know, I think it's really awesome.
Yeah.
And I've always been a little frustrated with how tight the machine is and how hard it is to make a change that is really relevant to our students and, you know, for every school.
Yeah.
But so I just hope that it's well received and supported from the places that, you know, that won't make it hard to keep doing this work.
Yeah. I hope so too. So you noted on opening day we had lots of different offerings, but hopefully if you looked at the offerings you'll notice they were kind of in some buckets. And our first bucket is what we call just like tier 1 instruction. So it's just like good teaching and learning 101. And we have talked a lot about responsive classroom over these past couple of years. And we launched with training last March. You saw we had a lot of sessions offered that were more specialized on opening day. What we love about responsive classroom is it's rooted in child development and the science of child development. And one thing we noticed though was that it kind of stopped at 8th grade. And we had a gap there. So we've done our homework and conveniently last spring this book was launched, and this is adolescent development. It's the latest research on adolescent development. So you might have noticed some sessions called the breakthrough years. This is not something we're doing as like a book talk. It's a little clinical. Some people might find it, you know, an enjoyable read. I like it, but it's not really, you know, a crowd pleaser. So we are though using this as our kind of support when we are developing professional development, and we're reciting it. We're making sure we're kind of rooting in best practice based on adolescent human development. So I'll pass that around for your review. The other piece in there was more social emotional learning, and someone already spotted this, the anxious generation. I know, Matt, you'll probably be talking about a little bit about cell phones at some point. You kind of, you know, talked about it last year as this is an upcoming goal. It talks just a lot about technology and how that's not helping our kids in many respects with their mental health. And our guidance group is reading this in their common studies. We have lots of different books being read in common studies, and you can see the type of forums we're trying to create are spaces where people who are being lead learners are then sharing their lead learners with their peers. So this is something that's going to, our guidance group will be sharing their information, what they're learning with the high school folks, and also across the district in different spaces. So we're already planning next year believe it or not. And you saw in the September note, we got feedback on the day, it was well received, we got some recommendations on how to make it better, and we intend to do so. You saw a technology pot, right? Okay, so we've got AI, which is changing a lot of our educational landscape right now, and we're a little in over our head with this one, and we have partnered with Greg Cox from the College of the Atlantic, and we have a tech team in district that's meeting weekly. We've got some internal expertise. Lou is working with the state. I don't know if he's here right now. There you go, Lou. And he's one of our local experts we'll be tapping into and giving us that state connection. And then Kate Meyer, who was an MLTI ambassador, is also on the team. And we're going to be learning and trying to see what it is we need to know and do in order to support kids in moving forward. But I'll tell you, this is a quick moving target. The speed of change is so fast. And we're just going to do our best on this one. But this is another hot book. So just pass these around in case anybody wants to look at them. And then the last bucket is the anti-racism culturally responsive teaching bucket. And part of our efforts this year as an administrative team is to read street data and to talk about that. And it's really in support of rethinking data, the big data that we often present to you. NWA data is usually deficit-based, not asset-based. And we are looking at rethinking different ways to build on strengths and assets, and just kind of reframing the way in which we use data to support and grow, and instead of shame and punish, which is what a lot of our stuff does. So we're just starting this work too. I just wanted to let you know these are the many different ways we're learning. And then there's a whole bunch of responsive classroom books floating around in the other common studies that I did not bring to share. And then we have more professional learning opportunities, which now is Rhonda's part.
So at the end of the September note, there was a link to our professional learning opportunities, and we've had 45 people sign up so far. Some people have signed up for multiple sessions, so there's actually 63 sessions with people in them. Really, the purpose of the professional learning opportunities is to take that work that we started last year and with responsive classroom with the opening day of school and continuing that work. And the buckets or the goals of that opening day were Tier 1 instruction, technology, I don't want to forget anything, responsive classroom, and the anti-racism work that we have going on. So all the professional learning opportunities are grounded in those four goals. Miranda Snyder and Kate Muzzy are going to be doing a book study for Do the Work for the anti-racism piece. Kate Meyer is going to be doing a session on keeping the human in the loop, AI in education. Cindy Lambert will be doing some Schoology sessions and taking it from, we've been talking about nuts and bolts and how to use it and how to navigate it, and now she's moving more into using Schoology for differentiation, for using discussions to give students voice, and using Schoology to enhance climate and culture. So there are still also, on top of that, there are still a couple of how-to sessions, but those are kind of the ones that are the next steps. For a responsive classroom, for a follow-up, Becky Lehman will be doing a book study on the power of our words, and the math interventionists are supporting teachers with fact fluency instruction and implementing math menu. So those are the professional opportunities that our teachers are going to be participating in throughout the year. And then my second piece to share is, while we're working on vision of a graduate, we also we recognize that there's still some work to do, and as we look at that work, we thought it would be helpful if we had a multi-year plan. So we call it a 5-year plan, but parts of it might be 2 years, parts of it might be 3 years, but the pieces that we've identified are MTSS, or multi-tiered systems of support, really looking at our Tier 1 instruction, which has been a focus for quite a while, a couple of years now, but continuing that, and what will that look like? Curriculum and assessment, we know we need some kind of curriculum review process, and what will that look like, and what's our timeline for that? And then really early childhood education, we've talked about that for a couple of years. We had Ashley Stanley and some folks that had worked on a PLO for the last couple of years come and present to us in the spring last year. And so that work will continue. We also have the state and CDS is charging us with providing services, special ed services for all 3 and 4 year olds. So we need to figure that out. So that needs to be part of a longer term plan than that's not just a one and done, like quick meeting, figure it all out. There are many, many moving parts to it. It's going to take a while to figure that out before we can actually implement it. This year, the state is given 3 years. This is year 1, so it will either be next year or the year after when we actually take on those services for 3 and 4 year olds. The process that we went through so far, where we're at, the MTSS coordinators and the interventionists met and did a futures protocol to work on the MTSS piece. And then at the June 18 retreat, we talked about, we did a similar protocol, but it was more open-ended and it was just all different aspects, and that's how we came up with those goals. In August, at the August retreat, we took the information that we gathered in June, kind of organized it into those buckets, got some feedback. So right now we're looking at that feedback, creating a document, and at the 18 meeting on September 19th, it'll go back to 18 for another revision. And then eventually it will get shared with this group. Any questions?
I just have one. Just in terms of both of the work you guys are doing, have you guys thought about ways to engage and educate parents as well?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is part of what we're hoping to strengthen our community connections right now with this vision of the graduate conversation, but that's not as specific as, say, the importance of reading to your child, right? Like, you know, and why that matters. So, you want to answer that one? I mean, you know, that's, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would say it's something that we need to strengthen. We're not nearly where we need to be, and I think that that will come out in part of that 5-year planning. That will be a thread that we see. It's not just, it's, you know, we need to educate ourselves, we need to educate the students, but we also need to educate the community on why we're making the shifts that we are. If I just finished chapter 3 of The Anxious Generation, I'm going to put a plug in. If you haven't read it, please read it. It's very powerful.
Any other questions for Rhonda and Julie? Okay, now next, our discussion item is calendar committee membership. I think this is an opportunity, if you would like to be on the calendar committee, to speak up and join this exciting. Actually, it's one of the most exciting things they'll do in the school board.
Maria, if you had
unless it's done in case
had
it's
offered in June, and I think Jessica.
Marie told me she had done it.
What?
Calendar?
I'm not calendar.
I had offered,
And I think Maria had offered, and I wanted to sort of.
We'll volunteer Mike.
Put it out there, well, yeah, that's sort of by default. But if there were others who were interested in sort of being a part, I want to be able to sort of, you know, start that process sooner rather than later. I will say that one of Gary Burr's parting gifts to the AOS board from his time was just, he had worked on previous calendar committees, and we had collected some information in terms of rabbit holes that have gone down that you probably don't want to go down. So Selena and I will be collecting some of those to be able to share, some previous information. So, we're able to focus within the guardrails we're supposed to be in. And so we appreciate Gary reminding us of some of the previous committees' work and be able to sort of have that as okay, remember we've talked about these things, so but remember where, what guardrails we need to be in as we make sort of those decisions. That'll be helpful. But was there anybody else other than?
I have a question on that, Rob.
Oh, yeah.
So what is the point of the calendar? Can you talk about what the point of the calendar committee is?
I think after the last 2 years of going through the process, it seemed like people wanted to have a little bit more voice in terms of understanding the creation of the calendar. And so it seemed like, I think it was after the calendar went through this past year, there was interest in wanting to be part of that sort of process. And the calendar is the purview of the board, so it seems appropriate to be able to have that space to talk about it. And I think the other piece of it was also taking a look at early release time, and that there was a role in terms of a secondary committee that kind of looked at after-school programming. And I know in one of our, I think Tremont is sort of looking at opportunities right now. We have some schools that have opportunities for kids after school, but is there a way of developing relationships? That would be another committee that would need to form to think about those partnerships.
So is the idea that this committee will serve and they will serve to a point where there's a draft, for the next calendar year's committee that
yes.
That's what the point is? So,
yep.
Okay.
Does that make it more enticing for you?
No, will the board still be, will the larger board still be like intimately involved in whatever comes well in advance of?
No surprises.
No surprises. Number 9. Number 9.
I do know Mike Kears does want to sign up.
Okay, great.
I have one more question. Will the calendar committee be functioning, some of the guardrails you're talking about, is there going to be a discussion of some of the guardrails that we're currently up against, like high school start time, those things like that, or is that, because you can't really you have to acknowledge those guardrails and whether or not there's flexibility.
ECTC and total number, there's like the guardrails of the state total number of days, what are the minimum, and then there's, you can go more than that if you want, but then there's contractual issues if you want to make changes, like the total number of student days, when that impacts your contract, and there's budgetary, there's the CTE requirement of not being outside of more than 6 days of difference, and identifying those, so that group will have that list, then we can share those with the overall board, so you sort of know the parameters that we're working under.
I don't think it's gonna take away from the amount of board discussion and having just more like a pre-work committee to get some hash out some options.
So we got 3 is good. Thank you.
And if you suddenly get a burning desire in the next couple days, you can call us email.
Well, I will say I'm interested, but I know we on the trip we like to kind of be strategic about how we place our board members. So I would like to touch base with my other board members before I volunteer, but I'm definitely interested in it.
Okay. Action items. Vote concerning 403B plan restatement and changes in Federal Secure Act legislation.
I move that the vote entitled Votes Concerning 403B Plan Restatement be approved in the form presented to this meeting, and that the secretary file an attested copy of said vote with the minutes of this meeting. Whereas the Mount Desert Island Regional School System AOS91 School Department previously adopted a 403B plan, the 403B plan to allow eligible employees of the school department to contribute salary pre-tax to save for retirement. Whereas the school department desires to amend and restate the 403B plan to allow for certain employer contributions and to reflect certain mandatory provisions of the Secure Act, Secure 2.0, and other federal legislation. And the school department's legal counsel has prepared the attached amended and restated 403B, the restated 403B plan that incorporates these features. Now therefore, the school board of the school department hereby votes to authorize the adoption of the restated 403B plan as follows. Votes concerning 403B plan restatement. Voted. The school board of the school department hereby votes to authorize and adopt the attached restated 403B plan. Voted that the superintendent and any other official designated by the superintendent is authorized and directed to execute and deliver the restated 403B plan and any such other documents as may be necessary or advisable in connection with such amendment, provided such documents are in a form acceptable to the superintendent and to the school board's legal counsel. Voted that an attested copy of this vote be filed with the minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Any discussion, and Mike can provide a briefer than that motion explanation.
Well, the changes are in large part at this level to ensure that we are in compliance with federal changes in legislation on 403Bs, within our schools, and that was part of the Secure Act. And then in two of our schools, the high school, and I'll talk more about it at the high school meeting, and Mount Desert, we already talked that there are some staff members who were excluded from the main PERS PLD support staff, and part of the process of fixing that is allowing for some control for employer, meaning the school departments, impacted contributions to a 403B plan, if that's one of the remedies we come up with. But since we are in AOS, we have to do this at every single schools.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Now, our next ones are first and final reading revisions of policies. And these are largely to comply with law changes. And then you'll see, so I think we can take them as a slate, but I'll just explain that. Then we'll, in a second motion, we will delete some policies. We're not obviously getting rid of those policies. We've just, they've just been realigned and replaced to comply with law, but people may remember that we did a lot of work on ACAA and ACAAR1, and so none of that work has lost the policies. It's just been realigned to meet with the law, but all the spirit of our, and the actual text of our work to maintain, to create a affirmatively welcoming, non-harassing environment remains. So we could take those as a slate. You can just say the first letter.
Yeah, I would say just take the first letters.
What's in the slate?
Yeah.
Okay. So I move adoption of policies AC, ACAA, ACAA-R1, ACAA-R2, ACAB, ACAB-R-1, ACAB-R2, JIE, and JLF as a slate.
Second. Any discussion?
And I'll just quickly share that in the news you probably heard that there was expansion of Title IX protections. Specifically, there is a new expansion for protection of pregnant students and what accommodations schools need to make. And they've expanded the definition of sexual harassment and discrimination. And then the reason there are two procedures now, because there is a recognition that the procedures were long and convoluted, and so they're separated out, procedures for harassment and procedures for sexual harassment, which are a little bit tighter. There's fewer of the reporting requirements in terms of hopefully speeding up the process in terms of meeting the needs of individuals and changing some of the definitions of sexual harassment so that it's it's actually more, it's making Title IX more in line with Maine's laws around sexual harassment and discrimination, which were a little tighter, so.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay. So then, because we have these new policies, we need to delete the, yeah.
So I move deletion of policies ACAA-R and ACAB-R.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. So that brings us to other business. Is there any other business? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I recall when before we started redoing those policies on harassment, we had a number of students that spoke about harassment and bullying. And one thing they said over and over again was that it was really hard to find the policies and even know where to start. I see in the policies that Rhonda's name and her contact information, the complaint form is gone and Rhonda's name is written. But with the new redo of the websites, those policies are buried. It took me like 5 minutes to find those policies. So my question is, will there be a link on the high school website? I mean, I'm just picking on the high school because it was high school kids that came in and spoke to us. For students to be able to readily, and parents actually, to be able to readily find that information rather than digging for like whatever they're supposed to do. And then two, this is a high school. I'll save my high school question for. Okay, so
if we can, since we were on future agenda items, because you're right.
Yeah.
There was a whole host of things that we were going to have, like making them more on the website and like display posters that tell people how to find things and whatever. So maybe we should have a report or something on like how that.
And a plan, like because we've done all the work to make the policies match to protect students, but we're still missing that visible piece and that easy peasy way for students and family members to find it.
Just on the AOS site, Lou helped me get the Title IX piece on one of the top button items, so it's kind of over on the right. It's one of the top pieces. You don't have to dig down in, but a student.
It was in the way it was changed for the high school is actually went into and in the student handbook, so off of Chalk Talk, it was pretty clear. But we have to make sure that the new procedures for the two are directly linked into that now that it all has changed. So that was cleaned up than what it previously looked like. But I think talking about it in October would be useful and be able to show some of that.
Can I ask you a question? Did you say that the student handbook is in the Chalk Talk?
That's where I believe you can find it in Chalk Talk or on the school website.
Okay, because
but new connections.
That's my high school thing because I can't find the student handbook anywhere. That was, I thought maybe those policy links were in for students.
Yeah, they were from last year.
But they're so that's
okay,
unless
so
I'm missing something.
Thank you.
Those are not anywhere. I can't find the student handbook. I can't find anything related to how students and parents can access that information or anything else about college procedures at the high school.
Okay, any other future agenda items?
Summer school update.
And then we'll have our usual reports and updates and policy and so forth. And we'll have the voting on the SRO memorandum. Is there any public comment? Okay. Next meeting is Monday, 21st of October, 2024. It will either be at 5 or 6, probably. Oh wait, thanks for being as well. Okay, so that brings us to a hopefully brief executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 40563 contract negotiations. Is there a motion?